Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. The JUTC has fired back at the Auditor General's report on the bus company, saying it contains wrong information and lacks details on steps taken to fix some of the problems. The state-owned bus company is therefore asking for the report to be retracted. But in an article in the Gleaner newspaper today, Auditor General Pamela Monroe-Ellis has stood by the report, adding that the office has no intention of withdrawing it. The Auditor General's report pointed out that JUTC's inventory system recorded 16 of 47 purchase orders for vehicle parts, totaling $223.4 million. However, the remaining 31 purchase orders, totaling $199.2 million, were intentionally excluded from the inventory tracking system. As a result, the Auditor General could not track the movement of parts throughout the company and was unable to determine if they were used to maintain or repair the JUTC fleet or other operational activities. But the JUTC disagreed, saying the $199 million worth of parts was broken down into three main headings: parts placed on buses during service by the dealer, tools used by the mechanics as well as posted to fixed assets, and thirdly, upgrade to the electronic fare collection system, purchase of smarter cards, and drilling services. The JUTC claims that information was not included in the Auditor General's report, even though the company provided details of the expenditure. The board of the JUTC has since written to the Auditor General asking to retract the report because it has inaccurate information. JUTC was quick to point out, though, that not all the report is wrong, but it failed to mention several areas and pieces of information provided. Meanwhile, the JUTC board agrees that exceeding its overtime budget by $728.6 million is a serious issue which requires urgent attention. The board has since decided that any expenditure outside of the budget must be approved by the Finance Committee. All overtime must be sent to the Human Resources Committee and then to the Finance Committee with a justification from management. JUTC also indicated that the company implemented an overtime policy in May. Overtime has been reduced from roughly $25.8 million in March 2020 to almost $11.3 million in June. As for the unapproved staff, which cost roughly $1.15 billion, JUTC says it has been a long-standing issue and it's seeking the assistance of the Finance Ministry for the establishment of posts. The bus company is also awaiting the results of a July 2019 post-audit exercise. Its staff complement has been reduced from 2,252 in May 2016 to 1,956 as at July 2020. There has been no local transmission of COVID-19 since late May, according to health officials. The health ministry says all new cases of the virus have been imported. Details in this report.
During yesterday's media briefing, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Bissaser-McKenzie said the cases suggest COVID-19 containment measures have been working.
Essentially, it means that in terms of containing the infection, as a country, we're doing pretty well. The confirmed cases that we're seeing are really cases coming from outside. When we look and we notice that the number of contacts of the imported cases that are coming in are so low, this speaks to our ability to really monitor the quarantine process. And what this speaks to is the importance of quarantine, because essentially these cases have come in from outside, they have been confirmed positive, but they have not been spreading.
She noted, however, that some cases are still under investigation.
We have some cases that are depicted in red here that are cases that are under investigation. Now, those may turn out to be cases of local transmission, but so far they're still being investigated and still would represent a minority of the cases that we're seeing.
Dr. Bissaser-McKenzie is urging returning residents to continue following quarantine protocols.
We have to emphasize that it's everybody's responsibilities to keep this graph like how it is. showing just blue and a small number of purple. We don't want to see any local transmitted cases. And those local transmitted cases are going to start popping up if persons are not staying at home during their 14-day quarantine period and they're exposing other members of the population to infection who will now start having symptoms and presenting to our health facilities.
Since the airports reopened on June 1, more than 160 new cases were recorded, most of which were from the United States. Kimon Witter reporting for TVJ News.
In the meantime, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton has refused to respond to questions about controversial contracts awarded to communication company MarketMe for the Jamaica Moves program. 2 contracts totaling roughly $55 million have been under scrutiny after news surfaced that the company was hired through the direct contracting method. At Thursday's press briefing, Dr. Tufton insisted that questions be focused on the COVID-19 response.
I'm asking whether you as a minister have given any orders to your staff to locate the documents said to be missing in relation to Jamaica Moves, the evaluation report, and the ministry hasn't yet uploaded information in relation to the first contract to do with Jamaica Moves. Is all that going to be made available?
Thank you very much, Diane. As I said earlier, this press briefing is titled COVID Conversations, and with respect, I would like to confine the discussions around this issue because this is what persons who tune in want to hear about. Now, the Permanent Secretary has been very forthright, very open, very transparent in addressing the other issues. He's on leave, well-deserved break. There is a process now as it relates to the PAAC where he's responding to questions. I believe that process continues and he has made some commitments. He's a chief accounting officer. I will allow him to pursue that process and I'm sure he'll be available to speak with you. But right now I really want to focus on COVID. Thank you.
Another journalist from Nationwide News also had questions about MarketMe.
Has the firm or any of its principals ever done any work for you in a private capacity or in your capacity as Member of Parliament? And if yes, could you please state the initial date of this arrangement with MarketMe and if it remains in place as of today?
Thank you very much for that question, Shaban. First of all, this press briefing is called COVID Conversations. It has been the case from we have started having it. I am going to respectfully ask that we confine our discussions to COVID and the very important issue that is of so much concern to Jamaicans. We can deal with that issue at another time. I'm sure there are other occasions when the question will be germane and will be responded to appropriately. So I would happily answer a question related to COVID, but right now I respectfully decline anything that deviates from the most important issue and why we're having this conversation.
Beneficiaries of government's indigent housing program could lose their property if they are found to be stealing electricity. Local Government Minister Desmond Mackenzie addressed the matter on Wednesday at the groundbreaking for the construction of several units in West Rural St. Andrew. Mr. Mackenzie said he will not tolerate the practice of stealing electricity.
We're saying to persons, if you want electricity, apply to the Jamaica Public Service for legal light. And anytime we find anybody who either thief light or thief water, chances are that you're going to lose out.
In the meantime, a decision has been taken to furnish all houses provided to the poor.
We provide furnishing because some people have it and you can go into something nice and then throw cardboard on the ground and lie down on it. And the government has gone far away. All of those 36 houses that we have built, all of them have been furnished. And we have a far way to go, but at least we have made a start. And other persons who talk about don't stop the progress, You can't stop what you don't see. You're seeing this progress. So you have to continue with this progress.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. We have many more stories when we return. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. 2 high-powered guns were seized this morning by the police in Salt Springs, St. James. The weapons and several rounds of ammunition were found during an operation, and we'll have more on this developing story in subsequent newscasts. A staunch defense from the Clarendon Southeast Member of Parliament this afternoon to criticisms about a recent standpipe erected in Salt River. 2 weeks after it was installed, residents complained that it had been gushing muddy water and is now dry.
This is the standpipe in Salt River, Clarendon, that's at the center of the recent spat between the Member of Parliament, Colonel Charles Jr., and his political opponents. With some residents complaining about the shortcomings of the solution to bring them water, Councillor for the Hayes Division, Cian Barneswell, and the PNP caretaker candidate for the constituency, Patricia Duncan Sutherland, have criticized the MP.
I'm going to give you a standpipe instead of a tank, and you must continue to carry water on your head with a cutter to your yard to bathe. That is just absolutely unreasonable, and it is insulting.
But Mr. Charles Jr. is defending the decision and the erection of the standpipe. He says he consulted with the residents, who then requested the temporary fix.
They said to me, listen, Mr. Charles, we want a water system where we can get water in our pipes. But if we can't get that, and until we get that, give us at least a standpipe.
He reiterated that the pipe is temporary until a long-term water supply system is implemented for the area. Some residents described the setup as a mud hole, adding that the pipe had been gushing muddy water from the main.
And that we have implemented now not just a flushing of the system, but we will be moving the standpipe further from the road to lessen any danger. That is why you have not seen yet any cement being put around the area.
He says work for phase 2 of the water supply system is to begin in September, barring any unforeseen challenges. As for this comment from Councillor Cian Barneswell,
is it because Salt River is not a community that supported or supports his party? That's a question I really want to ask him.
Let me say it to you loud and clear. Jamaica has moved out of the 1970s. There's no PMP or JLP area anymore, particularly in Southeast Clarendon. We are all Jamaicans, and so Salt River can expect the best representation from me, not because they are PMP or JLP, but because they're my responsibility.
Despite the negative effect of COVID-19 on the hotel industry, one small entity in Negril, Westmoreland is anticipating a boost through global recognition. The small hotel was rated among the top 100 hotels in the world on the internationally acclaimed World's Best Awards survey by Travel and Leisure. And we do apologize for the absence of that story. The farming community of Content Gap, St. Andrew could be Jamaica's next tourist hotspot. This follows a request from Member of Parliament for East Rural St. Andrew, Juliet Holness. Details in this report.
Over the years, Content Gap in East Rural St. Andrew has been the pathway to several tourist attraction sites. But for more than 40 years, the main road leading to some of those sites was in a deplorable condition. Now that the road has been rehabilitated, Member of Parliament Juliet Holness wants the community to also be a tourist stop point.
We want to ensure that Content Square, where all the people hang out, from Grover Ridge all the way to St. Peter's, when they come here to hang out, they come in here to hang out with tourists who buy them coffee right over there. We sell coffee right in the shop. We want to be in a position that when the tourists come to Mavis Bank, when they're going to Blue Mountain, Content Gap is one of the stops.
Speaking recently at the official road opening ceremony, Mrs. Holness made the request to Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett. Mr. Bartlett agrees, noting that the newly paved road could enhance e-commerce while reducing rural-urban migration in the farming community.
That our strategy forward is to reduce the leakages by adding the linkages. So the linkages come from all these produces, and the leakages now will come from the stopping of the import. So when you import less, you use more local, and you keep the dollars right here in Jamaica.
The tourism minister is also thinking about other areas in the constituency.
We have been looking at the Blue Mountain Culinary Trail, for example, as one of the areas of experience that we want to build out properly in tourism. We have already established the app for it using technology so that the visitors from all over the world, before they come to Jamaica, can use the app and find out where Blue Ridge Restaurant is, and find out where the coffee is, and find out where all of the assets in this area are located.
Prince Moore, TVJ News.
The Victoria Jubilee Hospital in Kingston received a ventilator to support babies who are born prematurely. The Guardian Group Foundation made the contribution yesterday.
The life of these children, we want to try and save lives. Around the world, there is the birth rates are going down, and we want to try and see what we can do as Jamaica push towards being a first world country in terms of healthcare. No hospital can exist without the support of private sector.
Guardian Life Eric Hosen said despite not being able to stage the 5K run this year due to COVID-19, the company is pleased with the donation. He says the company will continue to offer its support.
And we're going to continue to support the healthcare in Jamaica. We donated a bus, a Toyota Coaster, to this region to help in the transportation of our healthcare workers just a few months ago, and we're going to continue to do so.
Pediatric consultant at the Victoria Jubilee Hospital, Dr. Yannick Brown, says more ventilators are needed.
Up to yesterday, we had a total of 10 critical newborns on the neonatal care unit, and we are seeing many more critical newborns. The day we got that ventilator and had it commissioned on March 27, within 2 days, we started using that ventilator because of the dire need by our many critical newborns. So we are just appealing to the public and the private sector. If you can donate, there's a great need for more mechanical ventilators and also other essential equipment like incubators and warmers.
And now to news just in. TVJ Sports understands that at least 2 Jamaican-born players have been withdrawn from the Jamaica Tallawahs team as they were deemed close contacts to a player testing positive for the coronavirus. The local cohort of players were set to depart the island next Monday to Trinidad to begin quarantine, but were given the news of a positive testing of one player who will represent another franchise in the competition. TVJ Sports also understands that the likely replacements are West Indies batsmen Jermaine Blackwood and Kennard Lewis, who represented the franchise 2 seasons ago. The CPL is set to run from August 18 to September 10 in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, we'll have much more in Primetime Sports Friday. And that's it for the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm, and do remember to join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon and have a great weekend.